We thought the injury was the bad news. We were wrong. The injury was just the beginning. Breaking news tonight. Dana White isn't just replacing the main event, he is suing it. According to multiple sources, the UFC has filed a formal lawsuit against Justin Gaethje's management team for breach of contract and concealment of medical information. Dana White allegedly believes Gaethje's team knew about this neck issue 3 weeks ago and hid it to keep the fight purse secured. But while the lawyers handle Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett has a new problem, a much bigger problem. Arman Tsarukyan has officially stepped in. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for more money. He just said, "Send me the location. I will end the hype train." This changes everything for Paddy. He spent 8 weeks preparing for a striker. Now he has 9 days to prepare for an elite wrestler. I'm going to break down the opening betting odds that just swung massively against Paddy. Subscribe and hit the bell right now. If you want to see if Paddy can survive the switch, click that button. Let's look at the odds. Here is why Dana White is taking his own fighter to court.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
I do know
exactly
where you're
going
with this.
Enter Arman.
Yes.
Enter Arman.
Yes, it's time. Now, is Arman ready is the thing. Now, when he walks out of those videos.
No, but
I'm like, oh.
Yo,
Enter Arman.
Enter Arman. Walking out there, eating a turkey leg. I mean, come on.
185-pound catch rate.
What a
Honestly,
moment, though. Wouldn't that kind of be the best thing for the UFC?
And then an eating contest.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Him and Paddy, yes.
I'm legitimately.
The insane ending is this. The UFC's biggest new era card detonates before it even begins. A lawsuit explodes behind the scenes. Justin Gaethje is suddenly gone, and Arman Tsarukyan slides into UFC 324 like a loaded weapon. And now I need you to rewind with me, because you don't just wake up to Dana White filing papers and rewriting a division unless something went seriously, violently wrong. Nah, this can't be real, but it is, and the consequences are already leaking out. This didn't start with a contract negotiation or a phone call. It started with a photo, one ugly little mark on Justin Gaethje's neck that turned the entire lightweight division into a crime scene overnight. Because fans didn't see an ingrown hair. They saw the word nobody wants to say, staph. And once that word enters the chat, everything freezes. Commissions panic, lawyers wake up, and suddenly UFC 324 isn't a show anymore. It's a liability. Rumors have been swirling that Justin Gaethje is injured. A few videos have surfaced of him diving and cracking heads with someone, which wobbled him bad. But the visual evidence on the neck is what sparked the fire. You could feel it instantly, that weird silence from the top. That delay where nobody confirms anything, but nobody denies anything either. And that's when alarms go off in my head, because the UFC never stays quiet unless they're calculating damage control, or lining up a replacement. I'm telling you right now, someone knew this was coming before the fans did. And someone is absolutely lying by omission.
I think Ilya and Arman are the two best guys in the world. I think they need a fight at some point, because I think Paddy Pimblett is awesome. Justin Gaethje is awesome. Arman and Ilya seem to have something. And not only something in terms of skill, but between the two that we could build a great fight around, right? So yeah, I think Arman's fantastic though, man. He's good. He looked great against Dan Hooker too.
In your opinion, why UFC is not giving Arman a title fight?
I don't know. I don't know why Arman's not fighting for a title. I really don't. I've heard the reason because of what happened in Los Angeles. I thought that by weighing in as the backup fighter when Ilya fought Charles, and then by going and fighting Charles Oliveira or Dan Hooker, it would be okay. I don't know. I don't know what the conversations that they're having behind closed doors are, because they're telling him something that's making him okay with it, right? Because if he wasn't okay with it, he would be more loud about him not getting his opportunity. Yeah. So I kind of defer to, they know more than we do, and so we got to kind of accept it for what it is, because it seems like Arman is doing that too.
Ingrown hair is what he's claiming. Yeah, specifically he said he was eating brisket and had an ingrown hair. Let's pause on that. If that is an ingrown hair, that's the gnarliest ingrown hair I've ever seen. That makes a little red dot on your neck if it's a hair. This man had a crater in his neck. Gaethje jumps online fast, almost too fast, saying, "It's just an ingrown hair. Nothing to see here, move along." But listen to the tone. It was defensive. It was rushed. It sounded like he was trying to outrun a narrative that was already sprinting past him. When a fighter has to reassure the internet instead of the commission, that's when you know the problem isn't cosmetic. It's procedural. It's medical. It's legal. It's the kind of stuff that cancels main events. And you know exactly where this goes. Enter Arman. Yes, it's time. Is Arman ready? Nobody watched those videos of him walking out there eating a turkey leg and thought, this guy is cutting weight. But consider the moment. Would that kind of chaos actually be the best thing for the UFC? Him and Paddy? Yes. Legitimately though, I don't think Arman Tsarukyan could make weight on this short of a time frame. But the fact that his name is even being whispered tells you everything about the desperation in the room.
Here's where it gets dark. UFC 324 isn't just another pay-per-view.
This is the first crown jewel of a brand new broadcast era. Billions are on the line. Eyes are everywhere. And the idea that the headline fight could collapse over a preventable medical issue is the kind of embarrassment that makes executives furious. Not sad, but furious. And that fury doesn't just vanish.
The agreement by all, we're good. I believe that. Some people say, then Chael, why isn't he fighting for the belt? Well, I'll tell you why. He got put in what was known as a #1 contenders match in November. But that was supposed to draw into Ilya, who then says he's not going to be present, and they decide they're going to contest the title in January. So that would be a turnaround for Tsarukyan from November to January. And it's just very quick. I think that Tsarukyan's next fight is going to be for the title. That may end up being interim. That may, right? I mean, it's one of these things. It's one of these things that's got some moving parts. We don't all know yet what an interim belt is. We don't know. We largely agree as a community that at a minimum, an interim belt makes you the #1 contender for the undisputed belt. But when we saw that Aspinall had to wait as the interim champion, we found out that that wasn't completely right. So, but hear me out, because we would think that Paddy Gaethje, if Ilya returns, we then got to go do that match. That could delay the championship opportunity of Tsarukyan, but that's not because of a penance. You see the difference? Like we would have to do that. That wouldn't be a penance to Arman. We would have to give the interim champion the undisputed champion.
People keep asking why Dana White would go nuclear legally. And that's the wrong question. The real question is, who forced his hand? Because lawsuits don't appear out of nowhere. They appear when contracts are threatened, when assurances are broken, when someone's mistake risks costing real money. I don't believe for a second this is just about a neck infection. Something else is hiding under that surface. This whole interim title mess already felt unstable. Paddy jumping the line, Gaethje getting another shot after chaos, Arman being told to wait quietly. And now the universe slaps the table and says, no, not like this. Every decision that looked cute for promotion suddenly looks reckless under medical scrutiny.
We all know that Arman Tsarukyan is the rightful #1 contender. The UFC decided to go the route of Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. Tell me this, how does Justin Gaethje go from getting knocked out by a featherweight to beating a number 12 ranked Rafael Fiziev to now getting an interim title shot? Paddy Pimblett kind of made sense just because of the amount of hype he has, but then Justin Gaethje, yes, he's a big name, but he's been doing absolutely nothing but threatening to retire if he doesn't get a title shot. They obviously didn't want Justin Gaethje to retire, and they obviously didn't want to feed Paddy Pimblett to Arman Tsarukyan, and then they also didn't want to give Arman Tsarukyan the next title shot. So an interim title between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje makes the most sense for them apparently. If you had told me after that Jared Gordon fight that Paddy Pimblett would be 3 fights away from getting a title shot, bro, I would have crashed out. Look at Paddy Pimblett's last few wins. Bobby Green, who was on a 1-fight win streak, and then he beat Tony Ferguson, who was on like a 20-fight losing streak, and then he beat Michael Chandler, who...
Now, watch how fast Arman Tsarukyan's name starts floating back into the conversation, like a ghost they tried to bury too early. Suddenly, the guy they sidelined becomes the only clean solution, the only uncontaminated option, the fighter who did everything right and got punished anyway. And it feels poetic in a dangerous way, like the division is correcting itself out of spite. We all know that Arman Tsarukyan is the rightful #1 contender. The UFC decided to go the route of Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje because of the hype. But tell me this, how does Justin Gaethje go from getting knocked out by a featherweight to beating a number 12 ranked Rafael Fiziev to now getting an interim title shot? It was manufactured. They obviously didn't want Justin Gaethje to retire, and they obviously didn't want to feed Paddy Pimblett to Arman Tsarukyan. But if Gaethje is out and Arman is in, that reshapes Paddy's entire trajectory overnight. He goes from a protected star fighting a striker to a sacrificial lamb fighting a grappler who doesn't care about his Instagram following. The UFC knows exactly what that would mean long term. So every delay, every vague update feels like they're stalling for time to decide who they're willing to burn. I keep replaying how fast everything escalated. The photo, the speculation, the damage control, the whispers about replacements, and now legal smoke. It doesn't add up cleanly. It feels jagged, rushed, like multiple fires started at once, and nobody's sure which one to put out first.
That night 8 years ago, what's like the first thing that comes to mind when you think of that fight with Justin?
That I'm glad it's over and I never want to do it again. I'm like, the fans don't ever ask for a rematch or anything like that, because that would have never. I'm glad. He's unique, man, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch. So but if you want to beat Justin Gaethje, you have to. So he's a forward fighter and a pressure fighter that he will stand in the pocket. And he's gonna throw everything he got in that pocket. If you don't meet him, you'll get chewed up. So Paddy, the way to beat a guy who does this, very violent, aggressive pressure fighter, you have to meet him. You have to throw when he throws. So you got to be brave, and you have to go when he goes in between his shots. If you do that, you got a fair shot. If you don't do that, if you're not brave and courageous and throw when he throws in between his shots, it's going to be a really long night. It's going to be a hard night for you.
Here's another thing nobody wants to touch. Commissions do not care about hype. They care about precedent. And if there's even a chance Gaethje pass something through camp, that opens doors the UFC does not want opened. Doors that lead to audits, medical records, and accountability. Once that process starts, you don't just shut it down with a tweet about brisket. So, when you hear Arman Tsarukyan's name getting louder, understand that's not fans dreaming. That's infrastructure moving. That's contingency becoming reality. And if he walks into UFC 324 as the replacement, it will feel sudden to casuals, but inevitable to anyone paying attention. And that shift will haunt this division for years.
They're not even, like, they're just basically saying Paddy's more popular, you're getting it over Arman.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? And that's, I mean, God, I hate like how I kind of get into this too much, but I mean, that's really like, that's the definition of, you know, a monopoly where a single promoter owns the title and the rankings. And it's not a good thing for the sport, in my opinion. And I have to question what it's going to do for the longevity of the sport. You know, I don't think in the short term it's really going to make a big difference, right? Like, you know, it's going to sell the next fight, right? It's going to sell the next pay-per-view. But trends tend to come and go, right? Fads tend to come and go. At some point, like, you know, to have staying power and lasting power, I think it requires, you know, a meritocracy-based system. It's going to require, you know, some, you know, if you want to bring in guys like Arman Tsarukyan or Movsar Evloev, I always mess up how I say his name. You want to bring in these Olympic wrestling level guys. I mean, they don't want to have to go out there and put on some ridiculous show to become a champion. They don't want to have to go on Instagram and start a podcast and make you know, whatever kind of skits on social media and this silly kind of stuff. Like, they just want to be a world champion because they want to be the best athlete. And that's what makes me wonder how the staying power is going to be, right? When you're dealing with guys that are, you know, legitimate athletes that want to be legitimate athletes, and they're getting passed up by guys that are entertainers.
This situation exposes the core rot in the matchmaking. It's the definition of a monopoly where a single promoter owns the title and the rankings. And that's not a good thing for the sport. I have to question what it's going to do for the longevity of the UFC. Fads tend to come and go. To have staying power, I think it requires a meritocracy-based system. If you want to bring in guys like Arman or Olympic wrestling level guys, they don't want to have to go out there and put on some ridiculous show to become a champion. They don't want to have to go on Instagram and start a podcast and make skits. They just want to be a world champion because they want to be the best athlete. And when you pass them up for entertainers, you risk the integrity of the belt itself. I'm not saying this is over. I'm saying it's barely started. Because every update so far feels incomplete. Every explanation feels rehearsed. And every silence feels heavier than the last. If you think the next piece of news will calm things down, you haven't been watching this sport long enough. Something else is coming. And when it hits, it's going to hit harder. Stay sharp, because divisions don't collapse quietly. They crack, they creak, they expose secrets. And right now, the lightweight division sounds like it's under pressure from every direction. And one more wrong move could blow the whole thing wide open. What keeps bothering me is how familiar this feels. Every time the UFC swears everything is under control, it's usually the moment when the floor gives out. The brisket excuse, the lawsuit rumors, the sudden re-emergence of Arman Tsarukyan. It's all connected. The UFC tried to force a narrative